Hello, my name is Alberto Mizrahi and I will be giving a brief introduction to our senior project Automated Document Summarization 1.0, or as we call it for short, Tidbit. I developed this project along with my teammate Alastair Paragas. First, we give a brief description of our project. We try to solve the following problem. Throughout the course of our day, we are constantly bombarded with information from many different sources, be it social media, news websites, etc. Now, we, as a general rule, we would like to keep up with all this information. For example, a person who is a professional would like to keep up to date with what's happening in his field of interest in his profession. Or other people would like to be up to date with what's happening in world news or politics or economics. Now, the problem with this is that there's so much information that it will require a huge amount of energy and time to go through all this. Now, we try to solve this problem as follows. We developed Tidbit, which is a web application that summarizes articles and documents in the internet. It accepts a URL, and then the application extracts the contents, extracts the article from the website, it summarizes it, and it provides the user a brief summary of what the article is trying to say, or the main points of the article. This is an example of a news article that we summarize from Bloomberg. And if you read the summary and you read the article, you'll see that the summary is very accurate and it really captures the main essence of the article. Now, here are the use cases of our project. First, the first three use cases are very general use cases. We allow users to register for an account, we allow users to log into that account, and we allow them to log out. Now, the fourth use case is the actual summarization of an article. And you can see that we allow users to summarize articles with three different algorithms: frequency algorithm, the Loon's algorithm, and some basic algorithm. Now, why did we implement three different algorithms? The reason is as follows. The summarization process is not an exact science. There's many different steps, and in each of these steps, not everything is exactly determined. For example, in the first step, you have to extract the article from the website. Now, the website is just an HTML page, and it is not clear what part of the text in the HTML is part of the article and which part isn't. So there could be text, extraneous text like news links. There could be news bits from other news articles that the website offers, etc. There could be advertisement, or it could be other different things. So it is very difficult to determine what text belongs to the article and what text doesn't. The second step consists in breaking up the text into its sentences. Since English has its complexities and nuances, it is not trivial to break the article into sentences. And finally, we have to summarize the article by extracting the main sentences, which is also not an easy process because it requires the computer to understand what the article is saying. So for these reasons, we offer users three different algorithms. That way, users can test each of these and choose the one that works best for them. Since each of these algorithms has its own weaknesses and its own strengths, so we allow users to check them out and choose the ones they like the best and the ones that work best for them. And finally, we allow users to view a history of the documents they've summarized, so which documents they have summarized in the past and when did they summarize them. Now, for our system design, we utilize the model view controller architecture. It is a very common architecture when designing web applications. It consists in having a user interacting with a view, so the view shows data to the user and the user interacts with the view. Now, given these interactions, the view sends actions to the controller, so it requests actions that the controller has to do. The controller does these actions, and then it sends the results to the view. And then we have the controller interacting with the model, which is where the information is stored. So the controller will often, request data from the database, or it will modify it, and then the model will return the information that was requested. Now, for the requirements for developing this application are simple. The hardware requires any computer, any of the major OS, and then for the software, we use Python and Flask for the framework. We also use PostgreSQL for the database, and we use Git and GitHub for version control. For the front end, we use React and Highland.js as well as Bootstrap. Now, for our software environment, for our development environment, we utilize Docker, which really allows the developers to compartmentalize or encapsulate the development environment and then share that environment or share their image of their environment to other teammates in the development team. This allows teammates to have the same environment for development, and it also, once you are done developing, you can simply destroy the container where the image was being run, and then it is simply like it never existed. So it allows for an easy installation of all the libraries. Now for our deployment, we use the usual deployment for our web application. We have a web server that stores all the files in the Tidbit website. We have the application server that actually runs the Tidbit application, and then the application server interacts with the database server. For our application, we are hosting in DigitalOcean, where database uses Postgres. Our application server is run in AIO HTTP, and the web server as well. Now this is the class diagram for the entire project. You can see here the user controller and the user entity. This user controller is in charge of the creation of users, as well as the getting information of the users' accounts, as well as updating and deleting them, and also creating session tokens when the user logs in. You also have the authenticate controller, which is in charge of logging in users and then logging them out. You then have the summary controller, which is in charge of summarizing articles, which consists in extracting the text from the website, summarizing them, and then returning the summary to the user. This summary controller interacts with the document entity, which stores information of what document was summarized, and it also interacts with the history entity, which stores the time when the document was summarized. Now, throughout our project, we utilize various design patterns for our development. You can see them here. And an example of design pattern that we use is the object pool for database connections. So instead of creating a connection every time we need to interact with the database, we simply have a pool of connections. And every time we need a connection, we simply grab it from the pool. Once we're done with it, we just simply return it back to the pool. Now, for testing, we utilize various testing frameworks. So for testing the backend, we utilize Python's default unit test library, and we also utilize the async test library to test the asynchronous server IO code from our backend. And then for the front end, we utilize Selenium IDE. Every time we implemented a user story, we created a unit test. The unit test ensured that the user story was implemented correctly, and once we integrated the user story back to the project, we ran integration tests to ensure that the whole system was working correctly and as expected. So now we will give a brief demo of the Tidbit application. We first sign up for an account. We fill in the information. And success, the account has been created, so now we log in. And we reach the home page. So now we will summarize the document. So we can go to, let's say, a Bloomberg. We choose this article, and then we input the URL here. We choose Lund's algorithm for summarization, and then we summarize it. And then you can see it tells you the summarization algorithm that was used, and it gives you a summary of the article. And it gives you a summary of the article. And finally, we see the history, and you can see that the article that we just summarized is included in the history.